Welcome back to the Femcast, where I do my reaction videos over here on the Real Fem Sapien YouTube channel. Today, we are going to be talking about a topic that's a little bit heavier. It's something that I'm very passionate about. It is pregnancy loss. That's something that I experienced last year, and having gone through it, I realized just how common it was, how uncomfortable women are about speaking out about it, and on top of that, how isolating it can feel. I'm a very well-researched woman when it comes to female reproduction, and to experience pregnancy loss and then finding out after the fact the prevalence of it was just really unsettling for me. And I think that there are young women out there who don't have to have that same experience, which is why I'm happy to share my story out loud. So if you like this content, make sure you give it a big thumbs up, subscribe down below, and hit the notification bell. But before we get started, I do want to make a disclaimer. I don't recommend for every woman to come out on a public platform and share their experience with pregnancy loss. I am a year removed from it. I'm also a content creator. I have heard pretty much everything under the sun about me, myself, my family, my future, and a lot of it is just so outrageous and been so common at this point in time that it rolls off my back. If you have not come to peace with your pregnancy loss yet, it might not be the move for you to share it on a public platform. Keep in mind that we live in this culture, this social media clout chasing culture, where the more you overshare, the more that you can monetize that clout and the more attention you can get. Clout comes with consequences. So just be sure that that's something that you're comfortable sharing publicly if you choose to do so. If you are, I am so glad that you are choosing to inform other women about a very common biological experience. If you look at the channel name, it is Real Fem Sapien. That's for a reason, because being a female human is a really interesting biological experience. And again, I would like to repeat, people will prey on your lack of discernment for safeguarding private details of your life. So just be sure that you're ready to share this out loud. I also think that it is not helpful for women to wait till the end of their first trimester to announce their pregnancies to close family and friends, because if you're waiting until the end of your first trimester, which that's the trimester that you're most likely to experience a pregnancy loss, if you keep it to yourself completely, you're basically ensuring that if you experience pregnancy loss, you will be going through that loss in isolation, and you don't have to. I'm not saying you got to tell the rooftops that you're pregnant that early on, but you could find a close family member or friend and let them know. That way, if you do have that pregnancy loss, you have a shoulder to cry on. But before we get started, something a little bit more positive. I would like to thank the folks out there that have given donations to the baby. I am in my 8th month of pregnancy. I'm going to be a mom soon. I'm very excited, and we'll also talk about pregnancy after pregnancy loss a little bit. Might be a part 2 video, but it has restored my faith in humanity. Not because free things restore my faith in humanity, but because I genuinely think we live in an anti-natalist society, and I was surprised to see the turnout and the overwhelming support. So you guys have reaffirmed in my mind that people still love babies. So I guess humanity is not beyond redemption. I would like to thank Ryan H., Tony, Teresa N., Lila H., Maria A., Sharday, Kenise, Sherry, Kiara, Nina W., Jayla T., Rebecca B., Arcadia, Melissa, Jenny, and XL for all of the donations to the baby. Thank you so much. You guys are such sweet, kind individuals. Women, if you're watching this video and you're a pregnant wife and mom, feel free to email the channel. I do a baby registry charity. I think it's really important that women who get caught between the cracks of societal support, because there are some things that are accessible to certain moms out there, but if you're a struggling young married couple, people might forget to help you out, and y'all need it too. So feel free to email me, Allie@realfemsapien.com, with your baby registry. I would be happy to purchase you something from the platform. Let's talk about miscarriage. A couple of points I want to touch on is the emotional experience of it, what science says about miscarriage, some uncomfortable sentiments toward other women who are pregnant when you are no longer pregnant, pro-choice logic and its impact on my current pregnancy, because I know so many other women are going to walk this walk, and I would really just love if I could give you a glimpse into what you can expect and how some of this stuff is very normal to experience and go through, because not all of the emotions are kind. Sometimes you get angry. Sometimes you get angry at God. Sometimes you get angry at other women. And you know what? Shoot, we'll just throw the men in there too. Sometimes you might get mad at your man if you go through pregnancy loss. It is a mixed bucket of emotions. Normally, I provide a lot of citations when I cover biological topics. But in general, I think when it comes to pregnancy loss, there's a wide range of numbers, and it might be more harmful than beneficial to post some of those things. You're going to see in the description down below whatever sources I have available. But the number one statistic that I think is shocking to a lot of women, and I learned this in biological anthropology when I went through undergrad, is that 70 to 75% of pregnancies result in spontaneous termination. I can't use the A word on YouTube. Spontaneous termination is a natural phenomenon that happens for all mammals. It means that when the egg and the sperm meet, things don't necessarily go the way that they're supposed to, and at some point your uterus realizes it, your body understands this, and decides that it needs to expel the baby, expel the fetus. And that is so that your body can reset so that you can conceive new life. It actually is quite an intelligent design. But when we're talking about 70 to 75% of pregnancies resulting in spontaneous terminations, that includes life beginning at conception, because you could be pregnant for a couple of hours, a couple of days, or several months, but you still have that likelihood to spontaneously terminate the pregnancy. It has nothing to do with you. It's just the nature of the game. It is really hard to make it all the way from conception to birth. So that's where that really large number is coming from. And I don't say this to terrify anyone. We just really forget the simple fact that you could be pregnant for maybe 72 hours and you could experience a miscarriage. Life is really weird in that way. So much has to go right. But when you're looking at miscarriage rates, it's hard to nail it. For sure, a very common statistic is 1 in 4 known pregnancies, because it could take you 2 weeks to find out, could take you a couple months to find out, but definitely 1 in 4 known pregnancies result in a spontaneous termination. And that would be a pregnancy loss in the first 20 weeks. After 20 weeks, we're in stillborn territory, which is a different experience, but is still a spontaneous termination. It just takes your body some time to realize that the baby isn't viable. And there's lots of different forms of miscarriage. An uncommon form of miscarriage is a missed miscarriage. And then there's also something like a molar pregnancy. Go ahead and feel free to look those things up. Just do not terrify yourself. I'm just letting you guys know what are some of the mishaps that occur in pregnancies so that women can be informed. Your pregnancy that is most likely to result in spontaneous termination is actually your first pregnancy. In addition to that, right now, millennials and Gen Z are about half as fertile as their grandparents when it comes to sperm fertility and miscarriage rates. So this is something that a lot of couples go through. So it's not just you're not an alien. You're a human being who just happened to be unlucky, unfortunately. The most common causes for spontaneous terminations are poor DNA replication. This includes genetics, hormonal deficiencies, a defective egg, a defective sperm, lack of structural integrity of the uterus, such as a horned uterus or a uterus with a septum, or a mutation, which might fall under the poor DNA replication category. Miscarriages are not short like they are in novels and movies. This isn't a simple episode that you go through. This is something that could last multiple days. For me in particular, this is something that lasted 4 days, and it was very painful for me. I'd never experienced something like that before because my body was aching. I felt a little bit feverish. I felt overall really unwell, like if my body was just rejecting itself. And that went on for quite some time. But anytime you watch a film, it's in one scene. No, real life is very different. And if you had to go through that, I am so sorry, because there's a reason you found this video, unless you're a subscriber, in which case, thank you for hanging out and making it this far in the video. I know it's an uncomfortable subject. Keep in mind, if you experience miscarriage, that you might not have expelled the fetus, the baby, all the way. And so you might need a procedure called a D&C, which is why you need to make sure that you are okayed by your medical provider in order to start trying to have a pregnancy again. Not everybody has a clean, complete miscarriage, and the left loves to use that example these days to say, hey, you had a miscarriage, so you actually had a termination procedure. No, you didn't. Miscarriage treatment is not the same thing as a termination procedure. One is treating something that was out of your control. One is electing to end a human life. So don't get gaslit by these weirdos out there. The science is clear. There is almost nothing you can do to cause a miscarriage unless you purposely participate in recreational drug use of stimulants. Fun fact, opiates don't induce a spontaneous termination, but stimulants do. Or if you cause trauma to your uterus on purpose, which not a whole lot of women are doing. So just appreciate that simple fact that there's nothing that you could have done in order to avoid this unfortunate loss, because you'll play around with these ideas. Was it the glass of wine? Was it the cup of coffee? Did I walk too fast? Did I work out too hard? No, it's just an unlucky draw of trying to conceive and birth life. For me, being a very scientific and logically minded woman, although I do have my emotional moments, I really had a hard time processing the emotions of the miscarriage, because all of the science said that it wasn't my fault. All of the science said that I was just unlucky, but I still felt a very deep wounding. And it's because I went into my first pregnancy fearless and abundant, and I announced early, and it's because I wanted to, because I was just so excited to be on my mission and on my purpose. And I know that fear is a mind killer, so I just wanted to relish in that moment. Eventually, I had to be confronted with this new exposure to fear, a concept that I had not appreciated, which was sometimes life begins and it ends very quickly. And it made me confront death, which is not something that I'm often confronted with. I'm only 28 years old. I don't have many family members or friends that have passed away. It's very few and far between. So that really put me face to face with mortality, and I learned a lot from it. I think it was something that I went through. If we have to assign a higher reason for this situation, I think it's something that happened so that I could better inspect myself, inspect my spirit, inspect my character, inspect what it means to be a woman. As unpleasant of an experience it was, I learned so much about being a woman. And you know, before I had that pregnancy, I used to think that moms were just talking smack. Well, there's only so much you could know as a childless woman. Pregnancy really puts things into perspective. Kids give you purpose. I thought it was all because I didn't really take these women seriously. But going through that first pregnancy, I really appreciated finally what these women were saying. And that's not to say that childless women do not have value. And there's a difference between being childless by default and then being childless by choice. We do have to appreciate and understand that women have the autonomy to choose to be childless in this day and age, and that is completely okay. That is their prerogative to do so. But if you do choose to be childless, or if you are childless by default, unfortunately, you do forego a chapter of womanhood that you wouldn't be confronted with otherwise. So all in all, it's not something that I would take back, because I really grew from it, and my marriage really grew from it. That was a big moment in my life where I learned that, you know what, you do need a man. You do. Because if you're going through this crazy biological experience, who are you going to call if nobody's around, right? It'd be helpful if you were married to that man so that he could check on you. Not that that's the only reason to get married, but it was a very beneficial thing to have been married in that moment in time. I can't actually imagine what it would have been like to experience that loss outside of the context of a marriage. I do want to say, if you experience pregnancy loss or have experienced pregnancy loss, healing isn't linear. For me, I know when I thought I was over it. I just would find myself reminded of the situation that occurred, and it would really knock me back because I was just so ready to be a mom when I experienced that on and off for months because I was trying to run from this loss. I was trying to run from my feelings, but I couldn't run from my feelings. On and off, I just would get knocked down all over again. So just keep in mind that healing's not going to be linear. And if it takes you some time to work through those feelings, that is also okay. That is also normal. What I will talk about is the dark side of it that a lot of women don't want to say out loud because it has negative social implications. I did not have an ability to be happy for my girlfriends when they were pregnant or when they announced their pregnancies after I experienced my pregnancy loss. That did not mean that I wished them ill. I just couldn't be joyful for them. I felt very neutral about the whole thing. And then I also felt left behind because I was in a season of my life where all of my girlfriends were getting pregnant, and one of them actually was pregnant at the same time as me. But her pregnancy continued, and it was her first pregnancy as well. So watching her bump through the seasons through time, I would just keep looking down at my stomach that was empty. I did not have a child in my womb, wondering and asking why. And this is what I meant earlier when I said it can make you angry with God, but that is something that you just pray through, you work through, because actually getting pregnant in the first place is a positive sign that you can conceive life. So that's a good thing when it comes to fertility between a man and a woman in the union of marriage. But a lot of women don't want to share that. They don't want to share the fact that they're feeling some type of way about these pregnancy announcements. And it is such a challenge to try to find the positive emotions in your heart for a family member, a friend who is enjoying their pregnancy. It's just tough. There are tons of support groups out there that show how hard this is for some women. In regard to support groups, I would say you might want to go to a Christian support group for this situation, because I tried to find a support group and I was in a support group with women who chose to terminate their pregnancies. That was something I could not relate to, and I was upset. Pretty much in my mind, I was like, the audacity that they would make a support group and include these chicks in there. That's like some other type of pregnancy loss. I don't want to be in a group with them. So yes, I did go to a Christian support group. That might be something you need to do. I don't know if you're atheist or what, but if you're pro-life, feel free to just pop on in on the Christian side of things. Regarding pro-choice logic, I actually think it's very harmful for women who have experienced pregnancy loss to hear pro-choice logic, and Roe v. Wade being overturned was a really triggering moment for me because all of these women wanted so desperately to preserve their right to end human life when I would have given anything to not have that human life inside of me end. And so whenever these subjects or topics come up, I do put out posts often on Instagram letting women know that I see them, that I'm with them, for the women who experienced pregnancy loss, because that's a lot to try to come to terms with, that there's other women out there that just would not want that baby the same way that you wanted that baby. And I think that that's something that contributes to women feeling the need to go through that loss in isolation. It can feel disingenuous to go to your girlfriends about pregnancy loss, knowing full well that they hold that value, that the child's life is only valuable if the mother believes so. And that makes both their celebrations and condolences fall very, very flat, which is all the more reason not to share pregnancy loss with fair weather maternal women. You go to your mommy friends with pregnancy loss because they will get it a lot more than women who aren't even trying to reproduce at that point in time. I'm going to close this video out by discussing how that pregnancy loss impacted my current pregnancy. All I can recall, because this stuff has happened so fast, so quickly, and the first pregnancy was a year ago. That made it so that I kind of walked around in denial about being pregnant. I didn't want to bond with my baby like I did the first time around before I had exposure to the fear of mortality. So I just did my best to pretend that I wasn't pregnant. Eventually, I was able to bond with the baby in my womb, but I think that has a lot to do with when babies start kicking. You kind of can't help but understand that they're so cute and there's a lot of humanity going on. And when you go to your first ultrasound, there's so much room for the baby to swim around in, that amniotic fluid, is just zooming all over the place. So that first ultrasound was really neat, but I would say it didn't really physically sink in for me until I felt more of the kicking and my stomach started getting a lot bigger. So I'm glad that that resolved, but the level of resistance I had to bonding with my baby, I think that that's not something I would have experienced had I not experienced pregnancy loss. On the positive side of things, when you go through pregnancy loss, because it is the first pregnancy that is the most likely to spontaneously terminate, it is possible that that pregnancy strengthens things in your uterus, in your body, that makes it so that you can carry life in the long term. So just remember, the fact that you can get pregnant in the first place is a good thing and is a testimony to the fertility of you and your husband. My final thought is for women not to forget the men that support them through pregnancy loss. It's actually really hard for husbands to witness, and it's not just your pregnancy loss, it's also his pregnancy loss too. But from what I've heard from most men in regard to witnessing their wife experience a pregnancy loss, they're mostly just upset that she's so wounded and so hurt. So just remember who your champions are when you go through these tough seasons of life, and make sure you give them a big ol' thank you. In the description down below, you will see there is a link to a lecture on the modern fertility crisis, as well as a link to a community post where women on the platform shared their experience with pregnancy loss. You guys can peruse through that. That way you can get a sense of community. Let me know in the comment section down below if you want me to do a pregnancy review video, because I am nearing the end of my third trimester, and there's a lot of things that I went through that I didn't expect. There's a lot of mods. I'm telling you, there was a new development every week with my body. So if you want to hear about that, do let me know, ladies. And if you found this video because you were looking for it, I am so sorry that you had to experience pregnancy loss. And if you made it all the way through this video and you're a subscriber, thank you for sitting through this heavy subject. I could not be more grateful that you chose to be here. I will see you guys next time. Bye.